this could have an effect. And we were saying this before, when the Doge effect happened, it could have had a 6-month. It's more of a long trajectory. It's not an instant, I need to sell my house. But, it is maybe a 6-month down the road. And now maybe that 6 months is now.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt. That is Shawn, and welcome to our show, Shawn. It is Wednesday, October the 1st. Happy spooky season to you. Walking in here, I see Shawn's got his Halloween decorations up. I didn't see many decorations from your neighbors. Now, I know, because I come here every week, when you put yours up. But when do you think is like the acceptable time to put up the Halloween decoration?
I mean, a couple weeks, 4 weeks in advance. We went a little earlier this year. Some of our neighbors down the street are known as the Halloween house. They put them up really early. So
What
that
is
inspired
what
my
is
kids.
early for Halloween?
Mid-September. So like second weekend.
That's
September.
too early.
Yeah.
That's
it's
too early.
So then my kids were like, "Oh, we want to put up ours," and I was like, "It's a little too early." So I waited as long as I could, but I put them up last week.
I think you got to go October 1st for
October
Halloween
1st is
decorations.
the right time.
What about, where do you stand on like Christmas decorations?
Same thing with Christmas. We call it Christmas kickoff. So December 1st is when we put up our Christmas gear. And then, we're pretty quick to pull it down afterwards. Maybe a week after we're down.
I was going to say a week after is a good middle ground, because I'm like, all right, once Christmas is over, 5 days, 7 days after, but I'm of the mindset of like when the when the presents are undone, Christmas is kind of over. But my wife is like, well, technically Christmas, 12 days of Christmas, it goes on until January.
Yeah, it
and
does.
so
And
I guess you could go till January.
yeah, and that's the thing is like my family was like Russian descendants of like, Ukrainian area. And so they celebrated Russian Christmas. So the tradition with us or my mom was to keep the Christmas tree up through Russian Christmas, which was like the first week of January. So like January 7th.
Okay.
And I'm like, man, this is way too long.
You just can't have the tree on the curb in February. It gets a little weird.
Yeah. I mean, and there's definitely, what's funny is I went through, I'm listing a property here soon, and there were 2 renters in this 2-bedroom place, and I'm going to renovate it. And their Christmas tree was still up.
What?
Just like sitting in the corner. It was 2 bachelors, man.
Yeah.
Just chilling. They had a Christmas tree. They
just
set it up,
liked
and
it.
they just never. It had nothing on it. It was just a tree sitting in the corner.
That's probably their storage. Because
Probably
when
is.
you're looking at all these Halloween decorations, you go to Lowe's or Walmart, they've got these like 13-foot high skeletons. Where do you put all this crap?
I have no idea. I was thinking that. I'm like, man, these things are huge. I was just because of course my son wanted to get another blow up. But the 13-footers, I'm like, where do you store that thing? It's huge.
People need bigger houses.
Yeah.
Well, we got a guy for that.
Yes. Yeah. We have
So, Shawn, let's get into some topics for today.
okay.
The government is shut down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So the Senate failed to advance both parties' bills. Now, Shawn, I'm not going to pretend to know what's going on, healthcare, who wants this, who wants that.
It's all lies.
Is it just like when we were growing up, did the government shut down? It seems like the government's shutting down every couple. Now, it said, it hasn't shut down until 2019. I feel like every 18 months, there's like some sort of midnight deadline where the government's about to shut down, and then someone comes and rescues the day. But I guess the government's shut down. So what are your thoughts on that?
I hate politics.
Yeah.
I hate it all. I think it's all lies.
It's the worst.
Spewed in every direction. Doesn't matter what side you're on. It's lies. They're lying to you. They don't have enough money to fund the government. Yet, we're so many $1 trillion in debt. We have a problem. There's a big problem politically. I think there's a big divide politically, and people are at each other's throats for no reason because political enemies are spewing the hate. And that's just, it's so divisive. It's so bad. And they just lie to us. And then so I just kind of stay out of it. I don't like it. I'm a truth seeker, and it's really hard to find the truth when people are just lying on both sides.
Talk from a real estate, Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. mindset when you see the government is shut down. And what it looks like, it could be, 18 days, something like November 21st or something like that. So, and maybe it's sooner than that. But what are your thoughts as a real estate agent when you're looking at the market and then you're looking at a government shutdown?
Well, I definitely feel like some people start getting tentative when there are these shutdowns. So they start pulling back. They're like, all right, well, will I have a job? Especially this year might be a little bit more because there was those fear of the Trump administration firing federal workers if we do go into a shutdown, because that allows them to fire. That's what I've heard. I don't know if that's a lie or not, but is that fear-based stuff that people are instilling into people. So I think that that definitely has an effect on people locally because there's so many government jobs around here. So maybe that did pull back. The other thing that I think about, number two, is, you know, we have had shutdowns, but we always get back to it, right?
Mm.
And so typically people don't lose their jobs in these circumstances and they get back pay. They
Well,
get their payback.
people are getting furloughed.
Yeah.
So, and then what, some people are working without pay. Is that just what furlough means? Working without pay?
Getting furloughed. I don't know.
No, we'll have to look that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like there's that where, when we do, the government's not going to shut down forever. And so they're going to go back to work and all these people are going to get paid and it's going to be fine. Now, they could fire people. So furloughed.
Yeah, so furlough, an employee has been mandatorily suspended from work, either reduction in hours or complete leave without pay. I mean, there's furloughed. I signed on to Facebook this morning. People are like, "Oh, a hashtag furloughed. I've been furloughed." Furloughed could lead to fired. We don't know.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, those people were getting, if you remember back in the Doge days, those people took an option to get paid for the next couple of months. Well, actually, one of my friends told me he did this. He took the pay for the months, and he's like, I'm just chilling, having a vacation for all
Mhm.
summer. And then he's like, my job is highly specialized, so I know that I can get a job in any field after this, so I'm fine. But there are a lot of people that took that are now looking for employment after that furlough is gone. It was a paid furlough, I believe, for most people. And so now they've got to start looking again. And so this could have an effect. And we were saying this before where, when the Doge effect happened, it could have had a 6 month, it's more of a long trajectory. It's not an instant, I need to sell my house. But, it is maybe a 6 month down the road. And now maybe that 6 months is now. So October, it's exactly 6 months from April when all this stuff was happening. We'll see. The funny thing is I was driving down Harrison Street, just 2 blocks of Harrison Street. There's 3 houses for sale.
On the 1100 block.
Yeah, on the 11th block of Harrison.
One of them's 1.3, the other is 1.299.
Yeah, and there's one under contract. So like 3 within 2 blocks of each other have all been listed. And so I was like, well, I mean, that's kind of interesting. I haven't seen that in a while.
Mhm.
So there are signs, and these things, build and build. It takes a while. And so I don't know. I mean, there are pockets. Like we talk on our Monday meeting. We have agents that join our Monday meeting calls, and we all talk about what we're seeing in the markets. And some of us are slow, some of us are busy. Depends on who you're representing. If you have more seller side, you might be slower. If you have more buyers, you're busy because right now is an opportunity to buy. There's a lot more on the market to choose from. On a seller side, you're like, where's my traffic? Maybe, but it depends. It's like if you're in Fairfax, it might be different than Arlington and Loudon. And Loudon, I heard, is on fire, So like, it's so funny how when we talk about markets, it's so localized. And so you have to be a player in those markets. And the Northern Virginia market is completely different from the DC market that you were talking about. There's so much inventory in DC. These effects are happening. I don't know what it's due to. I was thinking interest rates were going to help it, but the interest rates did come down, but they're kind of like, coming back up a little bit. But in the end, I think government shutdown is just a fear thing. It's going to go back. We're all going to probably have our jobs, and they're going to get their back pay and they'll be fine.
We've seen it happen before. The essential workers are still working.
And one thing I want to bring up is there are essential workers that, like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, right? They are GSE. I can't remember the exact name of them, but they're government something sponsored entities, right? And that happened in like the financial crisis. They were private and they are now like in this, conservancy by the government. And so, my thought was, does anything affect, are they affected? And I don't think they are. I think they're part of the essential side. But, if it goes further, then you think about all of these government-backed loans or the government products.
Yeah, the flood insurance.
All of that stuff, are they essential? So where we run into this is like you have a contract and you have a contract that needs to settle soon. And all of a sudden, these resources dry up and you can't settle. Well, are you in default then? Like, what do we do? And so that's kind of where we are. I believe that they still go for the time being, but this is something to think about when you're getting close to these deadlines. And I had 2 settlements yesterday, and people were like, "Oh, I'm glad I'm getting it done before the deadline." So it's true. It's like there is that fear. So think
Whenever we see things like this, all I can say is just what a fantastic buying opportunity. Whenever there's a little bit of fear in the water, a little bit of pullback, a little bit of economy talk. So what's going to happen? That just means more and more people are going to be sitting on the sideline. This isn't necessarily my like salesperson shtick of like, hey, you should buy now. But if you're like looking to buy in the spring, it may make sense to look at some of the holdover properties that maybe didn't get the price that they wanted in the fall. They're still on the market. And now you have a lot less competition when it comes to, the late fall market, the middle of fall market versus the early spring market.
100%. Like this, I think right now, and I don't know what next year's market's going to be. And this isn't a real estate agent trying to get you to buy, right? This is from my um, knowledge of what has happened in the past and what I feel like this next spring market is going to be gangbusters, right? I think it's going to go pretty hard. But right now we are in a lull and it's fall going into winter. And I have talked to agents and I've called a few yesterday just trying to get an idea of what they're seeing. And, I have them telling me that I have products in DC, right? In these newer builds in Old Town in DC that are not selling. And the sellers are like, get it gone by any means necessary. You have opportunity here. You might not know it. And every deal is going to be different and every seller is going to be different. But there are some people out there that need to get their properties sold. And if you can find those deals and you throw them a lowball offer, I mean, this is your time to throw in those lowball offers to see what happens because things aren't moving quickly. I'll say that with a grain of salt because there are other properties that are moving very quickly with multiple contracts. So like I said, it just depends on what you're selling. For example, 3 that I'm talking about right now are new construction properties that are finally reselling. So what happens is these newer buildings, these condo buildings in Old Town, in DC, and in Arlington, they have sold within the last few years, and the sales for those buildings took a really long time. So the builder was trying to sell these units for years, right? So now those are finally all sold, and now people are trying to resell them. They're trying to resell them for more than they bought them for. Naturally, that's the premise there, right? They want to sell it for more. They're trying to cover their costs. But is the market going to pay that? It took a really long time to sell them initially. And the reason they sold that way is because it's a builder, it's a brand new product, no one's lived in it. You're going to pay a premium for that. But once they're lived in and you're trying to find the market for those again, you're probably going to put your expenses into that price and you're going to see if it sells. Some do, like 2000 Clarendon. There were a lot in there that were that initial sale, they were rare, right? And they were going. But now you're starting to see a trend in some of these buildings where they're just not going. And they're still trying to find their footing on where they should be priced. The Pierce is one of them, and I'm looking at one tomorrow to see where that should actually be priced. So there's opportunity, and you need to find those opportunities and go after it. Write the low offer. These sellers are waiting for an offer in some of these instances. So I would say it's best to just throw your best foot forward and see what happens. You never know what kind of deal you're going to get.
I saw this story on Twitter about property on H Street. It was bought a couple of years ago for $925, like new construction, row home, condo conversion type deal. Now selling for $695. So $925 down to $695, kind of like in the height of it was bought in 2019, right? So kind of at the height of H Street. You got the streetcar, you got H Street is gonna have its moment, right? It's gonna be like the next U Street. That didn't quite happen for
No.
DC. And so you want to talk about opportunities. And now the seller is even saying, hey, offering to pay 12 months of condo dues to ease the burden of higher interest rates. So this is what Shawn is talking about, where there are opportunities out there where you can get, a $250,000 discount on some of these properties.
Which is insane. What it's telling you is there's just no buyer for that. So save your money and go rent it. That's what I would tell them. I know that some sellers have to sell this, but like you're now giving it away. And like, does that make sense? If you would just wait 6 months, it might change. And you have to wait those things out. And so sometimes it doesn't make sense to sell. And I tell people that, like, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe hold off a little bit and let's wait to see what the next market's going to do. The spring is the best time always. And so maybe it's best to wait 6 months instead of reducing $250,000 to try to sell something where there's no buyers. You have to think about buyer pools. If buyer pools are small, you're not going to get your price, right? If buyer pools are large, you're going to get your price and you're going to get competition. If you're selling a narrowed product, you're going to have less buyers.
Let's transition to that. So you have a listing. It's not getting traffic. It's not getting offers.
Yeah, right now, I've sold, I don't know how many listings this year, call it 28, right? 28 different listings that I've sold, and they've all sold. If you look at days on market, they've sold pretty quickly. And the majority, a lot of them, I'm doing renovations to them, staging them, whatever I have to do to get them sold. This one started out where we renovated it. And, I was telling the seller that first floor units in condos are typically a little bit harder to sell. And for what reason? Some people think safety, but like, there's never been any problems as far as this kind is concerned and whatever. But there's that fear. And so it narrows your buyer pool, like I was saying. So a lot of people don't want that first floor. Some people love the first floor. But when I look at my comps and what's under contract in there, 2 first floor units just sold
Mm.
and one's under contract. And I'm like, my buyer pool was small to begin with, and now it just went down by 2 in the same building, which is really hard to be the third one. And so that's where I feel like the buyer pool is smaller. Now there's 2 other listings in the building. I called the other agent. I said, hey, how's your traffic? He's like, I'm getting pretty good traffic. I actually just received an offer.
Mm.
I was like, wow, that's great. Good for you. It was on the 5th floor. And so he's working that out. He said it, came in lower. And then I talked to the other agent who has the same floor above me, 2 floors. He's priced above me, which is pretty typical. He should be. But he is the same as me. He's seeing very, very few people through. That's what we're seeing. It's like pockets. And unfortunately, I don't have a ton of listings right now to kind of compare it to.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch coming up, but they're all kind of stalled in their own way. And so we'll have a little bit more personally for me to kind of figure out. But in talking to those agents, they're kind of feeling a little bit pulled back. I ran into Eli Tucker yesterday in Westover. So I was talking to him, and he's like, yeah, we're feeling it too. There's definitely pullback. So your opportunity to buy is now.
So what is the strategy there? You're not getting the showings. There's other units that are on the market. There's similar units that just sold. The buyer pool is small. What do you do there?
Yeah, I mean, all right. So the next thought is a price drop, right? So do we do a price drop? And the one that's going under contract or is getting the contract is priced $15,000 below us. So, and it's on the 5th floor. Now it's a little bit different floor plan. They have a smaller sunroom and they're facing straight into a new apartment building. So their view is literally straight in front of them, apartment building. So, but they priced at, $15,000 below us. So I think the price is always going to get somebody in, but are the buyers there? So maybe a small price drop will get the buyers in. If that doesn't, then I'm just saying, listen, you might have to wait this one out because, and we're going to continue to market as much as we can, continue to do the open houses to try to get buyer feedback. But sometimes those buyers aren't there.
What type of price drop is going to get buyers in? Because you're saying a small price drop to get buyers in. To me, those are 2 different thoughts.
Yeah. So here's the thing: is the unit above us is 600,000. We're priced at 575. The one that got the offer is at 560, and they're getting below that, right? So they got an offer below that. So maybe it's 560. I don't know. I don't know what's going to do it. And that's the guessing game of this. And that's why I talk to agents to see what they feel and what they're feeling. And, it's important to have the knowledge of everybody else around you so that you can make a great decision and tell your seller what to do.
Going into this, what was your expectation for how long it would take to sell?
I thought within 21 days.
Within 21 days?
Right now I'm at 14.
Okay. And then so at what point do you change
I think
the
at the
price?
21 day
At the 21-day mark.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking now. I mean, we want to get this sold. The thing is, you don't want to follow the trend. You don't want to make the price drops too late, and then you're following the market down, or you're following the time of the market. The December market is approaching. The January market. Those are slow months, and so when you're dropping, you want to drop quicker to try to get those buyers in before they go somewhere else that's your competition.
I think you said there was like another one on the 3rd floor or something.
It's in the other tower.
In the
24.
so it's the same community.
Yep.
I mean, what have you talked to that agent? What's
Yeah, he's the one that's getting the offer.
so he's at
560.
560.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so how many are in?
There's
build-
3 active in the building.
So the one that's not getting the offer, what do you think their strategy is?
I don't know. He was laughing. He was like, he and I were like talking fun,
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, listen, we got to get these sold together. So let's start working together and let me know, I'll update you as I go, and please do the same. I think that's the key with real estate and real estate agents. You have to be friendly with these people and have a conversation with them like people, right? And say, listen, let's sell these things together. Let's help each other. Let's do open houses together. Let's push people back and forth. That's what we've done in the past. And, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it shows activity, and you try then to get the buyer feedback. I'll say one more thing about this. I was talking to an agent yesterday, and he said, I have this listing in so and so building down in Navy Yard, and he's like, I've had it on forever. And he's like, talk about like inventory. There's 14 other units in the building for sale.
What?
14.
That's crazy.
So
In the same
in
building?
the same building.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'll figure out which building it is and we'll see if that's true. But like, could you imagine you go to sell and you're trying to sell like in February, he said he started, and then it's just super slow. And then things just keep compounding and nothing's selling. And this is one of those buildings that was newer 2 years ago. It was brand new 2 years ago. And now it's
The
yeah,
Bauer building.
about
Found it.
how many are in there?
1300 4th Street Southeast. I mean, the dots are all kind of scattered, but it looks like there's about 14.
Yeah, there's a lot. So
Crazy.
our point is there's inventory out there, and there's opportunity. If you're a buyer in the market, jump on these. Right now, interest rates are low sixes, better than they've been in a long time. I believe that you've got a couple of months, a couple of months for this buyer side thing to go. And then that spring market's probably going to start hitting in March, early March. And then your opportunity is probably going to be pulled back a bit. You're going to find yourself in competition. This is the time to find all contingencies and price drops. But again, depends on what you're selling. You got a single family in Arlington, probably not the same situation. My townhouse in Arlington, I sold it pre-market. So like there's differences in everything we're talking about, and that's what you have to be careful about.
Yeah, I'm looking at two single-family houses in the Lion Park area. One just closed for $200,000 over the asking price.
Mm-hmm.
It was priced at like 1.2, shot up to like 1.45.
Yeah.
Another one, just dropped their price, $73,000 down to 1.225.
Makes no sense.
Couple blocks away,
Yeah.
literally on the same street. And the one that sold was closer to Route 50. I'm thinking, why do people want to be next to the highway? It's just so nuanced that one property is going 200K over, and a very similar property is languishing on the market at a lower price.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and it's amazing what a month or two or three can take. And that kind of gets me to my next point. Can I talk about appraisals for a second?
Let's do it.
Oh gosh, appraisers are my like enemy number one right now, and it's not all of them. And I'm not saying like, but the fact that I can negotiate a contract, I can come up with my own price, and we've talked to my clients and say, all right, I'm going to price it here, and then I can find a buyer for that price or above that price, and then an appraiser comes in and says, nope, I don't think so. I think you're priced way down here. This is what your value is, and I'm not going to change it no matter what you tell me about it. All right. You have something that says, oh, I should have value because I'm an end unit townhouse, or I have value because I have a patio, or I have value because I have a second parking space, or, no, I don't want to hear it. This is my valuation, and whatever you say is not going to change my mind. That is like unreal to me, right? That's
So can you
practice.
challenge? What sorts of
Or
challenge?
Yeah. And so like,
So
just
you
so
can
know,
challenge.
you can try. You
can
can try. You can challenge.
And so no one in the history of challenges has ever changed the mind?
I have changed the mind, but
Okay,
so
so
it's two this year.
It's possible.
It's possible. It's very hard because what you're doing is you're saying, appraiser, you're wrong. And his boss is looking at him like, appraiser, you're wrong? What happened?
Yeah.
Why are you wrong? Your
So-
license is on the line. You better not be wrong. If I'm hiring you as an outside appraisal lenders, like, so what happens is lenders have a pool of appraisers. There can be no like coercion or anything there. And they hire these pool of appraisers. And if this appraiser comes back and says, oh, yeah, you're right, maybe I should give $5,000 for this, what's that lender going to say? Well, I don't want that appraiser again. They're not doing their job, right? And so they're kind of crunched now in between these positions of saying, well, it's my license on the line. I'm not going to give you the dollar that I feel like you should, you're arguing for because it's my license. Now, I have been able to do this, but it's been a few years since I had to do this, and I was able to argue it up because the comp was, across Route 50. And I was like, listen, it's a different valuation, right? But in this one, I had just sold the comp right next door, and I know the difference. I renovated both of them. I know exactly the value and what he did. One is a 1-car garage, one is a 2-car garage, right? But the other one, it has a parking space. It's an end unit. It should have value in other spaces that I argued. But all they did was take off for the garage and take off for a small square footage of 130 square feet difference. They took 10 grand. So it was like, it was appraising 40,000, a lot lower than things. So that what happens then is then it becomes a lending issue. And so if you have buyers that have certain programs they're using, this can then peg in, they have to put more money down. So a lot of times what we can do is if they're putting 20% down, they're 8-paper clients, you can just push it down to 18%. They don't have to come up with any more money. Their payment stays the same. It's just a different debt to income ratio. Okay. So like instead of 20%, it's 18%. Well, in some instances, what that difference does is then triggers PMI. So private mortgages insurance. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're below 20%, your mortgage insurance kicks in. So then that mortgage insurance could be pretty high. It could be a few $100s a month. So that then could then make it a qualification issue, or just like, hey, this is more than I wanted to pay, right? So these are things that you have to think about, and different programs, when you're waiving appraisal contingencies and things like this and going in to contracts without any contingencies, you have to be wary of these things. And, you learn every deal. I say this every time. And like, you don't realize that, hey, certain people can't do these programs, even though they're putting 20% down.
So if a buyer finds themselves in a low appraisal situation, what information does the appraiser need to possibly be open-minded about changing the valuation?
What I would say is if you're an appraiser watching this and you're having a problem with an appraised value, you're having a problem with the value, call me first. Call me and say, hey, Shawn, I'm getting this a lot lower. Can you explain to me why you were pricing it where you were pricing it? And I will explain it to you. But when you just say, this is the thing, and you then put it in, and everybody sees it, and we're like, wait a second, this is low, but the bank already sees it, and they're like, we're fine with this. What am I to do at that point? I can't do much. And so it's like trying to fight it after that fact is tough. And honestly, I didn't think I would have any problem with this appraisal. I didn't even think it was going to be possible, right? Maybe a little bit because we're getting higher than the last one, but it should appraise for right around what that other one appraised for. So, appraisers, call the agents, talk to the agents. This is the second one this year that has happened to me that I'm just completely dumbfounded about. And I have no fight in the game.
So getting back to the question, what information do buyers need to tell appraisers? Do buyers need to tell agents? Do agents need to tell appraisers that has changed their mind? You're saying it's very difficult for appraisers to change their mind if you challenge the appraisal. Okay. And now you know everything about the property, you know everything about the comps. Maybe the appraiser does not. We can say, oh, hey, we've got hardwood floors. Hey, we've got granite countertops. Maybe that works. But what is the most useful information that you can share with an appraiser that maybe they don't know that would help change their mind on the valuation?
Markets, right? Like if you look at a comp from 7-8 months ago, and so he was using comparable sales, and this is where I have to be so strong about this, in my opinion, right? If you're using a comp that sat through the winter, that overpriced, right? They overpriced it by $100,000. They sat through the winter. They were on for 140 days. They finally go under contract, and it's under market value. Why? Because they were desperate at the time. They went through a different market. Then the spring market hits, and I sell one for $40,000 more than that. That's telling you something. The market has changed. I priced it right. I did the things that I needed to do. I went through those properties. They didn't show as well. They didn't have the carpet redone. Like they didn't do anything to it. They just put it on the market. That's the thing, is like when you're going from a winter market to a spring market, and then you have a spring market comp, but you still pull a winter market comp, it's the wrong comp to use. You have to use the spring market comps because those are the best comps, the most recent comps. So my one right next door was the perfect comp. Diane, our friend Diane Schlein, had sold one across the highway, Langston Boulevard. That comp actually got us to a higher value. And it was a really, really great comparable. And their appraiser used it, but he didn't put as much weight that he should have into that one. And, I called my appraiser friend and I was like, listen, what can I do about this? He's like, yeah, dude, it's just a bad appraisal. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, well, you can argue this, this, and this, but like, and another thing that people don't understand is there's these like boxes that they have to check. It says, no, this is the value of this, and this is the value of this, and this. And it's like, dude, no, it's more nuanced than that. And you have to admit that. It's not like one box checks all, right? And that's the problem I have. I always feel like appraisers should have a 5% variance or a few percent variance in this, because there are differences to these properties that, looking at pictures, is going to get you. Like you're not going to find it in that. You have to know what the experience of the contract situation was. How many offers did you get? Why did it go there? What was your experience? Was there a lot of activity? Yes, there was a ton of activity. We got 3 offers, like that's why the price went to where it went. I don't know. It's very frustrating when you get through a deal and everybody's good to go, but an appraiser shoots it down. And I understand why appraisals are there. But, if I go to my algorithms, I always look at algorithms to get prices. They're all above what I'm getting for the property. All the algorithms are higher. So that should show you that, hey, somebody else thinks it's higher than that too. But, talking to an appraiser is just so annoying.
So where do you guys go from here?
I was saying, like, listen, it's worth more. It's worth more. Your clients are getting kind of shafted on the appraisal. But, if they just stick with this, they'll be fine. Hopefully they stick with it. If they don't, we're going to take their deposit. We could sue them.
So they're of the mindset they're going to back out if the appraisal is not.
No, they're not
solved.
there yet. But if they do, we're gonna force it. But the thing is, because they don't have any contingencies. But I'm trying to help them because I think they got robbed. I think that the appraisal was wrong, and so like naturally, as an agent that feels for other people's clients too, I'm like, no, this is wrong. Like I feel like this should be up. So I help them try to get that. I talk to my appraiser, trying to get the value up because I think it's wrong, and it's hurting actual buyers, right? And it shouldn't be that way. But banks have all the power and they push the power onto other people, and that's the problem. So, and then we could go into other things like insurance if you wanted to talk about insurance.
I mean, my eyes are glazing over. I mean,
Yeah, sorry.
appraisals, insurance. I mean,
I know. It's
Well,
just
I like
skills,
the
the things that
yeah.
you have to think about that you might not be thinking about in deals. Insurance is the next big thing. Maybe we'll talk about that at some other point.
Maybe we can talk about more like tangible things that
Okay.
are happening.
Sure.
Any other stories from the trenches?
Stories in the trenches. Yeah, I mean, I settled 2 properties yesterday. One was a listing. The listing side was a I mean, these are both condos right here in Arlington, and one was the listing side. One was going through Fannie Mae approval for the building. They lost their Fannie Mae approval.
It's happening more frequently.
Yeah, it is. So these standards are getting stronger. So there's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are, like I was saying, government-backed entities that have standards. And those standards are getting stricter and stricter, especially this is mainly for condo buildings, fee simple properties. If you're in an HOA, that might have you might have a problem with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. But, fee simple properties, typically you're fine. But they might have standards on like lender required repairs or something like that. But the buildings lose their approval, and so they have to regain approval. And sometimes regaining that approval is harder than it was last time. And it can take a while to get those. But there's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and their competitors. And Freddie Mac is the way we went. Fannie Mae is not approved at this time, but we're working on getting it approved, and it should be. But had they gone Fannie Mae, they wouldn't have been able to get a loan in the building. They went Freddie Mac from the beginning because the lender was good and he saw that there was no Fannie Mae approval. Went Freddie Mac. We had a few questions. We're able to get the loan done, and that was fine. So thankfully that closed yesterday. That was Intercoastal Mortgage, great mortgage company. And then, so that's one example. And then my buyer side was Home Savings and Trust Mortgage, and they did a great job. There were no lending problems, but one thing I'll say is that when buyers get into properties, once you hear mold is like, whoa,
mold,
freak out,
black mold.
There was a little bit of mildew under the sink, and I knew, like, doing the home inspection, I was like, this is gonna cause a problem, just because of the word, and there's sensitivities to these things, and some people are highly sensitive to mold. But it was a spot literally this big underneath this kitchen sink, and it's more like a mildew kind of thing. And the home inspector was like, just spray it with vinegar and just wipe it off; it'll be fine. But we
I'm
went.
guessing that didn't suffice for your buyer.
No, but it's too small to have a mold company come out. They're not going to come out for a little spot like that. So I had a cleaner come in and just scour that whole it was just the vanity underneath the sink. Scour it, get in the cracks, spray some stuff in there, clean it out. And in the end, they were happy, and so it's no longer there. But that's the one thing that some things you don't think about, and mold can be a non-starter for some people. Even the mention of there was a flood in here, or there was a water problem that we've resolved. Well, did you get the mold taken care of? Was there any mold? Was there growth? Well, we don't know because it's in between the walls. But like some people will go to the length of, no, I want you to cut it out, and I want you to see if there's mold in there. So, yeah, mold is one of those things. But in the end, it was very small. We closed it.
I mean, there really could be like a bunch of mold behind the drywall.
There could be.
You really don't know.
Yeah, if you have water in between your ceiling, there could be mold growing in there. You don't know that. And so how do you know? You don't know until you open it up.
Mm.
But mold feeds on moisture and drywall. That backs of drywall is like they could feed on that. So like it's like whatever it is made of, but paper basically. And so the mold can feed on that. But the only way to know is by opening it up or getting a air quality test. And so a lot of people don't go through that thing. But if there was a history like I think we were talking about it a couple weeks ago where there was a history of flooding, do an air quality test. If if you've seen things, then I would suggest it. Yeah, talked a lot. How about you, Matt? What are you seeing? Anything?
I'm just seeing and hearing you. That's what I'm seeing and hearing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes like I just go through things that yeah, like I said, you learn every deal. And if you're not doing your job.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think on one of my most recent transactions, we went under contract at a certain price. Buyer backed out. We went after their EMD. Part of me died because we let them off the hook without taking their EMD. Kind of a long story, but now we're under contract again. Different set of buyers, significantly higher than the first price. I don't know if it was the timing. I don't know if it was the interest rates. I really don't know what the heck happened because the market is the market is the market, and then we're back on the market and we're rewarded with a much higher price. It was
It's insane how this
wild.
works, and that's the coolest thing about that is, like, you were gonna take their deposit, you were gonna fight, 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 then all of a sudden you put it back on and you get 3 offers. Like, how does that happen? And it is timing. Timing is so important,
Yeah.
and if you're the 1st on the market compared to the 4th on the market or 3rd on the market, it hurts, man.
It got
you
to a
know?
point where, I mean, we should be begging the first people to let them off the hook.
Yeah.
That was like the mindset. I mean, they went radio silent on us. They just fell off they just were like, we're not gonna deal with these people. So when I thought about it, I was like, we should pay these people to let them off the hook. Like the second offer was that good of a deal. And I was like, all right, I'm puffing up my chest a little bit too much about this silly little EMD. Let me get my client 20 grand more.
Yeah, and well, this happened to us twice this year. So I had a same thing happen, but I didn't get 3 offers, but I had a backup offer that I just went to. I took some deposit, and then I went to the backup offer and got it ratified. Now my clients ended up with the same net. Timing is very crucial. Sometimes you miss it by a week, man. You just never know.
Cool. All right. Well, that will just about wrap up another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.